your consent. All right, Carl, do you want to tell us about who you are and how you got to where you are today?
So my name is Carl Pratt. I'm the general manager at the Elizabeth Hotel in Fort Collins, Colorado. My background actually is in a good portion of my career has about 20 years has been with health wellness destinations. So I have a degree in health wellness, and that carried me through a lot of really fantastic people in the industry of health wellness, from physicians to exercise physiologists and
Wow.
acupuncturists, massage therapists. So a wide range where you find the opportunity to sort of an osmosis process and just being around those folks. I've been lecturing
Yeah.
for about 20 years on health and wellness through that experience at these destination hotels and resorts. Then I moved into more traditional hotel environments and spa and golf resorts,
Yep.
as well as 3 years at senior living in Tucson, Arizona. So uh, kind of a non-traditional path to where I am today as a general manager at the Elizabeth, but certainly enjoy the experience of being in hospitality and all the varied priorities that you can find along the way. And each day is just enough different to keep my attention.
Yeah.
Um, I think that probably the part of what brought me into health wellness and what has carried really my personal life is I had the good fortune of learning transcendental meditation when I was 13 years old. And it was my parents brought us as a family group.
Yeah.
I'm the youngest of six, and I suspect that had something to do with it to try to calm the house down.
Yeah.
So, uh, but I really took to it and carried it through my life. And I was pretty athletic at the time, and thought that between exercise, meditation, and perhaps things that I didn't have any idea about,
Yeah.
how I could potentially help people live a healthier lifestyle.
That's amazing. And I wish my parents had the foresight to make the four of us on my side because
Yeah,
we definitely needed it. It's funny as well. You were mentioning, like you're in the Elizabeth Hotel in Fort Collins, and it's interesting because I actually stayed in a autograph hotel in Charlotte 3 weeks ago.
ah,
Um, in the Grand Bohemian is what it's called. In
yeah, yeah.
downtown Charlotte. Yeah, and my partner, she's obsessed with autograph hotels. So that's just got a fine taste, clearly.
Uh, now you need to find a way back here because so our theme is music theme, and we
Yeah,
have turntables in all the guest rooms. We have 800 vinyl records here at the hotel that guests can borrow. We have live performance music and a lot of local bands to Colorado
yeah,
every Friday, Saturday night, and we have jazz pianists on our rooftop bar um,
that's
uh,
awesome.
each of those nights as well. So, and we also have a lending library for guitars and musical instruments. So
Really?
any guest who's here with us, and we will on occasion have some people from the community come in and just kind of jam in the lobby. So if you're someone who plays guitar and wants to carry, and it's not easy to carry with you when you're traveling, so we have them here for
I
you.
actually traveled with a guitar for the first time when I moved, and I did not even know how to put it through security. So I had to call the guy over and be like, how do you check these things? I've
Yeah.
never actually traveled with it on a plane. But I'm actually like learning myself. I do Friday afternoon lessons. So I basically just want to like impress somebody by playing Umbrella by Rihanna and throw them, like with a song, with a song.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. Well, you could just come here and strum on one of ours.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Well, I'm definitely making note of that. But yeah, I suppose diving right in as well. One of the first questions I always ask people are like, what do you think are the three biggest challenges in the hospitality space right now? Roadblocks or challenges?
I think, I think the experience of coming out of COVID for a lot of people is their life has shifted in regards to priorities, and we are navigating through how hospitality can match up with that. So in regards to hours, days, and all that sort of thing, we have done things like four tens instead of and giving people that 3 day break. So if they can carry on in a personal life in a way that is more fulfilling for them, and also satisfying family needs. So I think that in a lot of ways, that there's a shift in priorities for our associates, which means we're shifting to match that. And it's really refreshing to have the opportunity to be able to do that for folks, because the industry has I think a reputation for the opposite of that, and we are working really hard to find ways to balance out work and life within the hospitality industry. And I think that that's one of the, I think it's really one of the opportunities and one of the benefits of navigating through hospitality after COVID, because it's something that everybody needs, including
Yeah.
myself. So we can spill that over into my experience as a leader within hospitality. I think that the second one is there's I think a heightened level of gig work within hospitality. We have
Yeah.
folks who will come for a shorter period of time, haven't quite found the career place they want to be. So there's a bit more of transition that takes place. And also think that that has something to do with the priorities that people are putting in on their lives. So a little bit of that. And I think lastly, the supply chain and all those things have since passed,
Yeah.
but there's still reverberations throughout the hospitality industry in a lot of different ways. From when you get a little bit short staffed, guests are thinking that everything's back to normal.
Yeah.
And so there's a customer relations and sort of shared experience that we need to find in regards to how we can provide the experience that everybody's looking for
Yeah.
with sometimes challenging staffing levels.
Yeah.
But right, so really building a rapport and an understanding that it's not quite done. There's a lot of different statistics, but there's something like 1.5 million people that left the hospitality industry,
Yeah.
along additional people who have early retirement and all those sorts of things. So just that general workforce, and managing that with our guests who have expectations of us.
Totally. And it's interesting you say that, because that question is obviously not a setup. I just feel like I hear that when you hear like about the hiring part, because your second point and your third point, they're kind of not mutually exclusive in the sense that like, a lot more people are looking for more kind of gig work. So obviously there's a type of people who are looking for more flexible kind of work before they figure out what they want to do with their career, so to speak. And then the third part is just it's just hard to find the right talent to manage the expectations of guests, given that you are in such a kind of premium hotel location. So that's going to obviously be quite difficult. One of the questions I do ask of people is, do you notice a difference between younger employees and older employees now, given that we're kind of out of COVID and there's that gap in hospitality learning?
Yeah, there's
Use the
definitely,
phrase
yeah,
Gen Z, but like
it's,
every time I bring up Gen Z, it's like some people got to
yeah,
get it. But you know what I mean?
it's definitely yes. I think the and I think it goes back to the career minded.
Yep.
We have some that are there. However, the expectation that we have of them in our minds of the past generations is we have to shift to match what their expectations are of how they're going to successfully be in a role of supervisor, manager, et cetera. So the so that I think that is a part of it. I
Yeah.
think the other part is and to be honest with you, I think it's the right saying, right? It's always this is really provided an opportunity for the hospitality industry to focus on
Yeah.
the needs of the associates that I think was done in the past, but certainly not to the level of intention that it's happening now. So, so I think that this group that's coming out, particularly the sort of the 20 and 30-year-olds coming out of COVID, they really have decided that work is not the highest priority. And even though I may be career minded, I still want to find something that's going to match what my personal needs are. So,
Yeah.
and they're a little less willing to sacrifice. some of the needs that you would have in, I think, in any work environment, but certainly with a 7 day a week and some unpredictability associated with hospitality.
Yeah.
It does, it does amplify the issue a bit.
So I guess like on that, which is quite interesting, like what's your opinion on the job market in hospitality then? Is it strong? Is it weak? What do you think?
I think that there is, so we are very fortunate to have CSU in our sort of next
Colorado
door
State University, yeah.
at Colorado State University, and they have a really effective and robust hospitality program.
Oh, great.
So we do have hospitality minded students that are a part of our team, and we are partnering more and more with them, both for the benefit of the students and the program, as well as our hospitality industry. And I really mean that as a whole throughout
Yeah.
northern Colorado. So there's that's a real fortune for us. It's not so much the case in other locations where that program or those students aren't available. I would say that there is some risk, continuing risk. I think so. For example, TV shows like Hell's Kitchen, it doesn't do the industry any good. That is very old school. It's
Yeah.
not what's happening in kitchens today. The public relations that relates to that show does not help the idea of would you really want to work in that environment?
Gordon Ramsay or Marco
Yeah,
White.
exactly. And it's a much kinder, gentler kitchen and food and beverage environment than ever has been the case.
Yeah.
So, I think that there's an opportunity for us to build on the positive of
Yeah.
what is happening in the industry. So most of our line cooks are 410s, and we have several remote and hybrid associates within our sales department, within our accounting department, and there's a variety of other housekeeping and on online with flex scheduling. So there's a lot that we are doing and have been doing, but obviously it's a higher priority now, and our associates are guiding that
Yeah.
process. So
No, that's actually very interesting because I mean it was actually going to lead into like what I was going to ask you, which is like it sounds like you with CSU next to you and these sort of new sort of like flexible kind of accommodations you're making to employees, like one of the things I've definitely heard from every restaurant since I started this job like 18 months ago, from everyone in hospitality, is like back then it was like hire at all costs, hire, hire, hire. Then as the months went on, I kind of got into more of a kind of quality, like how do we hire for quality now, like as in post-COVID rebound, then we're into quality. And now the conversation is very much into like retention. Like how do we keep the good employees that we have? And like, I suppose the question I have for you then is like hearing all that, and you're like talking about like kind of specific kind of flexible kind of working conditions and accommodations for people. It's like, have you like a specific policy process, like, or a perk, like for retaining staff? Like, do you have like initiatives for that? Or is it just like, you're just a wonderful manager, Chris?
yeah, I think it is organic here.
Yeah.
There are certainly things that we have done for those who are career minded to show a more clear path to elevating their career. And we've had several of our front desk team who have recently been promoted up into our sales team. We have had other individuals within our food and beverage area. And to that point, for those who are interested, and that was, I think, something that was more in the 90s and 2000s than it is right now, but there still are those individuals, and we do need to find ways to motivate and recognize that quickly. So we recently had one of our servers has a degree from CSU in organizational development. She started with us as a cocktail server in our rooftop bar, moved to our restaurant, and we've hired her as a supervisor, and she's been with us just over 6 months. So, yeah, so for those individuals, we really we try to find every way we can to just to satisfy that need.
Yeah.
And the others, we just try to be as careful about listening to what's going to work for them. And I think one of the things that has been a huge benefit in hospitality for people who are either part-time or have a lot of demands in their personal life with family or school or whatever it might be, we're open 7 days a week. We're open 365 days a year, and we're open 24 hours a day. So we can put an individual on an evening shift for 2 nights a week, and that satisfies us, and it works really well for them. So I think that is missed in the industry sometimes, or people thinking about the industry. They kind of they watch Hell's Kitchen, or they see other, circumstances that they don't recognize the flexibility that we can have for them.
Yeah, I mean, never suggest them to watch The Bear anyway, because otherwise you'd never work in a kitchen. So,
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right.
as good as that show is.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen it, Chris, you definitely should watch it. And then do everything that they don't do.
Exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't do anything that they do. But that's kind of amazing. It's interesting because this whole series that I'm doing here is very just talking to hotel managers and hotel leads. And it's interesting because everything you're saying is actually not unique to, like, your opinion is like other hotel operators are saying the same thing, but it's actually a different opinion to what I hear from restaurant people and franchise restaurant runners. In the sense that, like, retention is so hard in the kitchen and the turnover is so high, and it's like, only certain kind of brands of restaurants are able to like keep staff, whereas everyone I speak to in hotels, either they're like, I find that there's like not that much conquesting going on, like as in like other hotels stealing from employees from other hotels, or they're like, a lot of hotels I've spoken to are very much like groom their employees to do more and kind of elevate their careers, which I don't necessarily hear a lot from a lot of the different kind of restaurant groups that I speak to. Obviously there are exceptions in restaurant groups. I mean, like Jersey Mike's, for example, like all the people who run those franchises now are probably started in the kitchen in there, and then they help their employees kind of like acquire a franchise for themselves, all that kind of stuff. So like, there obviously are exceptions to it, but it's interesting your opinion, like the opinion of like yours is like so different from like restaurant, even though it's kind of in the same space, if that makes sense, where you are hiring the kind of hourly worker, so to speak. I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go on.
Just to that point, one thing that we did do about 6 months ago is we added a kitchen appreciation fund. So it's a 3% that's added to the guest check automatically. If somebody disputes it, we take it off. But overwhelmingly, it's been a very positive.
I was going to say that's the worst person if you want to take the 3% off. Oh, that's cracks me up.
Yeah, and basically what it's done too is because it's based on volume. When we have a night that's or a weekend that's really strong, homecoming or various other events and programs, that appreciation fund increases, so they get a higher hourly rate associated with that. And it's also on the busier periods. We do it by hour. So if dinner's busier than breakfast, et cetera, and vice versa, then it associates with the shift in the hours that person worked as to how busy it was. So I think it is motivating. I think it's something that is helping us a great deal of retention. At a lot of places are worried about that. I have had over the 6 months, maybe 3 people that have objected to to paying that 3%. So I would encourage other restaurants to start thinking about that, because not only is it beneficial for the associates as far as seeing the ebb and flow, benefit when they're really, really busy, they get more. But it really does help with retention just on a generic level.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, like clearly, like it works from a morale perspective, and it's like the appreciation matters. Yeah, no, I mean, that sounds amazing. So more power to you. So there is an implementation of a process. There you go. So that's awesome that you did that. That will absolutely get a shout out. I guess, this is kind of one of the same kind of question, which is like, especially in a very kind of, actually, I'm very interested in your take on this question, because your hotel is like so premium that like this is actually interesting, like in terms of managing guest experience. But like, has there been like an emerging technology kind of avalanche like for you since, like, say, COVID? I know that, say, like a lot of the restaurants you speak to have all basically changed the entire operation, from like curbside pickup to like, phone booking, digital kiosks, more robots in the kitchen, less humans. Like, has there been any sort of like technological implementations or things you've seen across like POS, checkout, keyless doors, all that kind of stuff. Like, is it like, are there trends in technology that you see that are like amazing or like that you're already implementing?
Well, with Marriott, there's a lot of guests that take advantage of the mobile key. So
Yeah,
it is, check in and out almost. They have to check in with, their ID, but other than that, everything's all set up for them, ready to go. And I think that was well before COVID. So
yeah,
it's good to have it, right? And I think people probably adopted that through COVID more aggressively than they may have in the past. So for the the obvious reasons. I have seen some AI. We haven't moved to it, but there are more and more.
yep,
There's a robot server, right? Not for our environment, but for some, it would certainly be something that a lot to talk about. And
yeah,
then there's robot vacuum cleaners and that sort of thing. Again, we have not moved to that. We're because of the boutique environment that we have. One, we don't have a lot of carpet. It's just, and then secondly, with we do want to engage with our guests, and it's a
yep,
big part of our brand. So I think that there would be some, if we at some point maybe we go with a robot vacuum that's going up and down the hallways of the hotel.
yeah,
But as far as engaging with guests, that's something kiosks we would probably not. There's no intention for us to move to that in our
yeah,
environment. But I know there are other Sage Hopper hotels that have kiosk,
yeah,
and it's working for that environment. So I think it's certainly happening, and it certainly will be growing. It's a matter of how it fits the location.
totally. Um, I had a call with the guy who was the head of technology at CKE, and they own Hardee's and Carl's Jr.'s. And he was
Mhm.
telling me that their drive-throughs are now almost all AI, generative AI driven. So when you speak into the drive-through, you're actually talking to a computer, and it's like it can speak back to you as if it was like a human, and you wouldn't know the
Yeah,
difference. And
right.
like eliminating the mistakes that humans make in the drive-through, which obviously I don't want to say is like for like, obviously with that premium
Yeah,
boutique hotel, but like the implementation of such technology is just happening across the board now. Like we've had, I had a guest on at the podcast, and she was telling me that they owned like Friendlies, the ice cream store, and they own a bunch of other brands in their portfolio, and that they were launching a pizza concept that was a robot that made the pizza, and it was all kiosks internally. So you had to use all these kiosks, and they only had hosts; they had no servers. That the pizza would be made by a robot, and then would spit out to you, and you just pick it up yourself at the counter and you could eat it there. And I'm
yeah,
like, that actually is just like mind blowing. You know what I mean? That like
yeah,
3 years ago, I feel like COVID accelerated the evolution of all these businesses.
yeah,
Like a lot of backburnering was happening where people were just kind of like, oh, that's cool. To now it's like actually like for at least in the rest of the space, it's like, okay, we got to elevate this to the next phase of efficiency, like that kind of quantum leap, so to speak.
yeah.
Uh,
I think that I think it's I would see there's going to be some intrigue and people interested in experiencing that in its early adoption,
yeah,
and then it will be a normal thing,
yeah,
just like checking out at a grocery store. I think then there'll be us and others that would differentiate themselves by having human interaction. And so I think that the industry will probably split a little bit there, associated with people who are wanting to have some human connection and those who don't care for it or don't need it in that particular situation.
yeah, no, 1,000%. And I guess we're just like in the midst of a kind of technological revolution across the board.
Uh,
Like, yeah, like all elements, like, like your supply chain, like the analytics, the running of the business. I mean, so many things I never really thought about. Like I met a one woman I had on the podcast, and she was talking about heat maps in restaurants and using them to spot where people are congregating within the restaurant, like being able to track what people look at in the menu so you can see what items, like eye tracking them, like amazing stuff. And like bringing everything into data, which is kind of like interesting for a lot of these kind of more like older brands that might not have like had a change in 30 years in terms of the guest experience.
right,
Um,
right.
but yeah, so we're at time. I'm just going to pause I'm going to stop the recordings, and so don't hang up.